I'm good. Everybody. Yeah, this time I need a motion to return to open session.
Second.
We got a motion in a second. All those in favor say motion, saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Motion carried. All right, this time we're going to stand for a moment of silence and we're going to our pledge. Right? Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I need we're down to our approval of our minutes from our February meeting. The motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion and a second. All those in favor say motion, saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like
Aye.
sign. All right, motion carries. At this time, we're down to our financial report. Mr. Willie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening.
The
The financial information uploaded into your portal earlier today. If any of you have not had a chance to access that, or if you need a hard copy now, I do have those available if you'd like. But February monthly review, I'll just make the comment that given the continuing resolution and the information contained in the February report, that we are still trending in a favorable direction and in comparison to the prior year. But I'll be happy to answer any questions or note any comments regarding that report again.
The water for the high schools. Is that for field? Is that why our water runs so much more?
Is that for the high schools in general?
Yes, sir.
Largely, I would guess that you are going to have usage of water pertaining to fields, use of field houses, et cetera. We can check on that and get you a better answer and compare the usage if you like.
No, you don't waste no time on that. I would think that's a big.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
anyone else? Move along.
All right, for the 2021-22 budget update, just to make you aware that there really hasn't been enough advancement in the session at this point for us to look into budget projections or impacts going into the next year. At this point in time, as you may be aware, there's a lot of focus on a couple of individual bills. One of those being the step increase to actually implement that in the 2021 year to get us caught up. We actually have recognized a little bit of success as of late on that bill. It is through the Senate. It has to go to the House. But on that step increase, a couple of things we wanted to make sure that was covered in there is the fringe cost and having some flexibility on making the payments so that it would not be mandated that it has to be a lump sum. If districts choose to do a lump sum, that's fine. but they also will now, it appears, have the flexibility to utilize their payroll system to implement that, so that they're maybe not having to come up with the money to do that all in one lump sum. We're also going to get the language in there where it is calculated based on actual prior year information as opposed to just average. So we stand a good chance to get that fully funded and have some information in there, or some things covered in there that we really need. In addition, on the budget, we're just getting information in proposal form of what we think might happen to the base unit cost, which will be a very minimal increase. But again, those are just in proposal formats at this point. We hope to have more information at the next board meeting, and definitely going into the work session there. And that's all I have on the budget update at this point.
Any questions? If not, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
This time we got personnel reports. Be good.
Yes, I'm Ken Shitting, not for Dr. Anderson, but would recommend exhibits A through E for your approval.
So moved. Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second on the floor. And all those in favor said motion, saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion carries. All right.
Okay, just a quick review of our COVID numbers since we last met. Just to give you a little review. Obviously, the weeks of February 8th, 16th, and 22nd would be the ones since we last met. You'll notice that we have stayed down in those. Week 24, 26, obviously very, very good weeks. So we continue to see a positive trend since we had the sort of the January disaster, as I like to call it. Student positives, very similar trend. You know, when we were in January, we were really struggling, but those numbers have continued to come down. And again, looking at weeks 23 through 26, you know, we certainly have reasonable numbers, 24, 25, and 26. Quarantines, we certainly have felt the positive of these numbers not being quite so bad, because we've been able to staff things. Last week and the 24 week were especially good. We did have a spike back on the 23rd week, and we did go back up a little bit on the 25th week. What is interesting is when you look at student quarantines, they're all over the place, just to be honest. We don't see a trend there yet. We do believe we're going to see a trend, but we started baseball season with a bang. We almost immediately started baseball, and then we quarantined baseball, softball players. It's just like, this is what we do. We're going to start, and then we'll figure it out. So, but numbers do look better, and so we'll continue to follow these. We have not done as much staffing surveying. We were doing 3 days a week. To be honest, we've dropped that back to a couple of days a week, because to be honest, our staffing has been so much stronger in the schools that, you know, that was just extra work for somebody to come out. Mr. Chair, I'll be happy to take any questions on the COVID personnel update.
Won't look at any questions.
Give me an update of how we doing with the public shop.
Okay, I could do that now. Was going to do that in the my remarks, but this is a good time. Today we had a COVID vaccine event at McNeese High School. Carolina Pines put it on for us at the very last minute. We realized last week that supply going to these providers was erratic, and they were worried with the opening of 1B. For instance, Care South was worried that they could not get us the vaccine for everybody in a timely manner. They actually worked with us to, you know, they were encouraging to say, if we can find somebody else, let's share the load. Carolina Pines stepped up to the plate, and they reached out to us on Friday, and we had the event today. And they had, obviously, our people got priority, and they got them right in and right out. They said within 15 minutes, they had done all of the high school teachers who wanted to be vaccinated. They were already sitting in the bleachers doing their wait time. And then, of course, it was open to the public the rest of the time. So they had 400 vaccines to give today. The last I heard, they were under 100 left to give. So very, very popular, very good event. Just as we came into this meeting, still communicating with Sand Hills on doing the Chesterfield Ruby area. Tentatively, Mr. Batson, you need to know this, tentatively this Wednesday, beginning at 1:30 is what they're shooting for, to do all of the Chesterfield Ruby area staff members who want to be vaccinated. So they're ready to ramp up and knock those out. Care South is going to do our Pageland, Jefferson area, and our Sherrall area, and they're targeting next week is going to be their time. So as soon as we firm those dates up, of course, we'll be communicating with the people in those areas to knock those out. It's going very smoothly. I'll tell you, we had a lot of staff members who had already received the vaccine one way or another. They were on standby or one thing and another. So our numbers are nothing like the 600 and something we originally thought we needed to do. They were significantly lower, not because people are opting out, but because they had already started receiving the vaccine. So we're very thankful to our providers. They have, organizations that normally care about turf and protecting their area have been working together, and we're very thankful for what they've done for us.
We have a percentage of, do we do a survey or something at each school, like Maggie High? How many is gonna take the, shot, and what percentage of them not take the shot?
We are checking in at about 66 to 67% that are going to receive the shot or have already received it, and about 33% that are not. Yes, sir. We have surveyed multiple times to hone in on how many vaccines we needed to get from these providers.
And we do one shot or two shots?
So far, we've been allocated all 2-shot vaccines. We don't get a choice, and even the providers don't get a choice. But so far, everything has been Pfizer and Moderna.
They've already set up their scheduled time to come back to Mappy for the second round, I've been told.
That is correct. And I don't, be honest, with all that's going on today, I haven't been able to confirm which day it was because they were looking at 2 days. But they're actually going to come back to Mappy and do another community event. And of course, we've offered all of our schools community events to, like a gym to do vaccines.
We'll move on to our next item, down to our written report and disposal.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Want to highlight a couple of items from your February curriculum report. Registration for SURDEP, which is our 4K and new 5K students, opened on February 22nd. Parents have 2 options for registering their children. They could use the online registration portal, or they could make an appointment at their child's school to go in to register. Once the children are registered, teachers will contact parents to bring the children in to the school for Dial 4 testing for 4K students. This Dial 4 assessment is required by the state. An IT update. 1,702 Chromebooks have arrived and been delivered to Palmetto Learning Center. We're expecting an additional 1,580 tomorrow to be delivered to PLC. We are still waiting for additional devices. The good news is, worst case scenario, if we do not have all the devices that we've ordered, we still will have our reconditioned Chromebooks that we can use the best of for our students. That concludes the highlights for tonight. Any questions?
Yeah. With these new computers, or Chromebooks, excuse me, how close are we in being able to go one-to-one?
If all that are ordered, we feel confident that we can supply one-to-one for our 3rd through 12th graders.
Okay.
With extras
Okay.
for stayers.
Okay, and the refurbished, once we turn those back in, we still gonna be in good shape?
Yes, if all of our orders come in, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Bowles.
Thank you.
Got the superintendent report. Okay, yeah, as you know, we're on a track to tentatively return to 5 days for, high school and middle schools, beginning, next Monday, the 15th. We, have been, getting all the supplies out to the schools, any additional supplies that they needed, and we should be ready. Along with that, bus capacity questions, have come up, not just in our district, but statewide. But the state superintendent now has basically passed on bus capacity issues to the local district. We will only put students in numbers over 66% on an as-needed basis. That will not be the way we run normally. But if we do have like a driver that's out or something, we may have to go over 66%. We believe that our students and families are ready for us to be back to a 5-day face-to-face. And it's coming along with good timing with the immunizations. So for our staff, so those two things are merging quite well. And of course, our numbers are coming down. With that, there's been a lot of questions about things like graduation plans and proms and such. So I first mentioned graduation. We are committed to having a face-to-face graduation this year, and with no less than the tickets that we offered last year, which was 4 per graduate. I do believe we'll be offering more tickets. I will say in Matt D's situation, they normally have the graduation indoors. We'll need to go back outdoors to meet the requirements we have to meet. But, we can certainly handle that for another year, and we'll be fine. So we'll be making sure parents know that they at least get the 4, and we'll postpone any decision on more until probably the 1st of May, because we want to be able to give as many as we can. And if we make a decision now, that number might be smaller than it'll be if we get closer to the date. High school prom is a sticky one because there's not a lot of prom plans at socially distanced, but having gone to the state superintendent's meeting last week and us discussing this, most of us are holding off until, it's going to make very late proms this year if we do it this way, but holding off until after spring break, see if these trends continue and if we can have some sort of a prom for students. It may look different. It may be outdoor prom. It might be, who knows what it'll end up being. But the idea is trying to see if there is a way to have a prom of some sort for students. Likewise, all of the other end of the year events, we're going to try to do the same thing. The 4K graduations, instead of doing, or kindergarten graduations, instead of doing them for all of the different kindergarten classes, we might do them one class at a time. But we're trying to find as much normalcy as we can for our students and their families. Any questions on those two? Okay, the Family First CARES Act, that's the act that has covered employees who've had to take leave because of things like close contact, quarantine, or positive cases. As we move out of this vaccination phase, we will begin to phase out the FCCR days because a person who is vaccinated does not have to quarantine. That's part of the CDC requirements. So we will be bringing back to you a plan at our next meeting that says now that we've vaccinated, now when this happens, this is how we respond. But of course, things like quarantine days will go away for staff members because they won't be covered now. But staff members quarantine, of course, they can use sick days. But, we've been covering all of that all year. So, we will begin to phase that out also. Testing and assessments, your guess is as good as ours, but our state is a group of a consortium of states that have asked to be able to just use their MAP testing data and STAR testing data as a way of assessing students this year and not doing SC Ready and EOCs. We expect to get feedback from the Federal Department of Education within weeks on that, but we are still planning as if we're going to give those tests SC Ready and EOCs because there has been no approval. So we're moving forward with those plans. Finally, the future of virtual education. Virtual education in some form or fashion is here to stay, we all believe, but it will not be every school running virtual education. We will run high school virtual education where one teacher may be working from Central, one may be working from Chesterfield, one might be working from Shaw, and one working from McD, where all of them come together to teach any child that wants to be virtually educated. We believe that our numbers will go down that much, but also financially, that's the most efficient way. Ms. Folsom, do you know when we have to turn in our virtual education plan for next year?
They have not given us a
Okay.
definitive date.
But we have to actually draft a plan of how we're going to offer virtual education moving forward. So, but it is here to stay. There will be a percentage of students who want to continue virtual moving forward. Many districts are doing an application process where if a child begins to struggle, they're not logging on as they should, they are removed from virtual education and back to face-to-face. And I think that in our plan, that's an appropriate thing to do because that's just like the kids who don't come to school. And we can't teach children that don't come to school. So if they don't log on and do what they're supposed to do, we need to bring them back where we can keep our finger on.
Do you have a kind of indicator that this is mostly high school kids or elementary and middle school kids that are not signing on? You had to go, which level of grades is the worst?
It's across the board.
Okay, well, I know Marlboro, when they did kind of evaluation of some of the reasons kids were not, especially the older kids, a lot of it was work related, a lot of it was dual enrollment related, a lot of it was babysitting related. So they had other competing things a lot of times conflicting with their virtual class. So I guess thinking upstream to that is when we go back to a quote unquote normal school setting, we're still going to have some of those issues where you're not going to have kids willing to give up their job at McDonald's or Bojangles, whatever, or still have the babysitting issue, still have things that's going to compete with going back to the normal school setting. And that's why I'm hoping that in our plan for how we plan to use virtual in the future, that there is some flexibility and understanding that's going to be part of the future.
Oh, most definitely, there will be, because it will be an asynchronous program. They can log on, if they work during the day, they can log on during the night or vice versa. But the bottom line is, if they're just refusing to log on and do work, we have no choice to make it back.
Right. And I know, speaking with someone in the Atlanta area, and they said they had been virtual for years because that's why they no longer have incumbent, whether they is weather permit or whatever, they still have that one-to-one capability so that school continues on regardless of whatever the environmental conditions are.
Yes, sir, no doubt.
So let me understand that 21-22 school year, virtual schooling will only be for high school students.
No, sir. It'll be for all, we'll go back all grades, but it won't be where, we have a whole class at Edwards.
Right.
Fourth graders, because there won't be enough fourth graders at Edwards to justify 18.
Okay. So are we going to set up the virtual school that we deal with, the teachers that deal with virtual students?
We'll have teachers that just deal with that, but we won't do a school because we want to keep them enrolled at their home school.
I mean, they still be enrolled at the home school, but it'll be separate.
Yes, sir.
All right, now, how are we handling discipline, with students the teachers, giving them assignments that make out language, remarks, or just don't deal with, how are we handling those students? Are we basically taking them off the
Well, yes, sir, in some cases, but of course, the code of conduct applies,
Right.
which means they could be expelled if it was to that.
Have we done that this year?
I don't think we've had any online expulsions.
No, but we've had some that have had to come back face to face. We've had a couple that our schedule was changed and their attendance was monitored more closely and they ended up coming back face to face. So we've tried to follow the same progressions of the discipline code virtually that we would with a child that's in class. Instead of one that's in class being sent to PLC for 45 days, in the virtual world, they've had to come back to the school.
And turn them into a computer.
That's correct. And so if they come back for 45 days and have success, then they have earned the option to go back virtually. So it's just kind of been like the opposite. You know, if they're not doing well in school, we send them to PLC. We have had some that we have that were face to face that have gone virtual. But it's went both ways. But the number of expulsions is way down in both scenarios.
And what about, there's another area that I want to ask you about, okay, absentee. If they're absent for a number of days, they have to come back. And the parents are contacted.
Yes, sir. They're not happy, but yes, sir. And in a lot of cases too, the truancy piece with the virtual student has been a little bit different. So instead of family court this year, our out has primarily been DSS. We've been working through DSS instead. If we can't get the parents to come in and conference and meet with us about their child's attendance in virtual.
Look, I'm saying number 8, 9 employees of, sometimes 4 or 5 employees of 15 or 18. I'm just wondering what's happening to those students. I'm assuming now if they are absent more than a week, then you all got back in public school.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. But I do want to bring up the one thing that was discussed at the school board conference here was state schools are certainly competing now for students. As you look at online, you look at homeschooling, you look at private school. So in some instances, the parent is elected to choose one of those other alternatives because they're finding it to be a more efficient avenue for them. So I guess in the realm of looking where we're going, I certainly agree. If the student's not doing what they need to do, then we need to figure out some way to get them back in school, get them back on track. But what the conversation was at the school board meeting is, yes, we're not running education as a business, but we have to look at the market is changing, the climate is changing. There are more players in the game. There's homeschooling, there's obviously you guys know that. But it tends to lean us hand more towards what we do with virtual school and being able to retain those students.
Dr. Goodwin, Teal, how many students are going, what's the max number in a class, face to face, a teacher is going to have, what's the max number?
I don't know that I can answer that one right off.
But they got to be a number, I mean, they can't be.
Well, obviously the number nobody likes to hear is 35 because that's the legal number, but we don't have classes of that size in our schools.
Also, Dr. Gilman, I certainly agree with going back to school. I'm wondering about philosophy, 5 days versus 4 versus 3. What are some of the thought patterns that make us feel like the 5 is necessary as opposed to 4 or 3 or whatever the case may be?
Well, there is no doubt that our students who have been back 5 days are really gaining momentum that we have not seen in the other schools. You know, our K group, but fifth grade have been back 5 days now for a number of months. Our momentum and our growth on that is indisputable. What happened when we came back to 5 days? So, you know, we have a limited number of days for the rest of the year. You know, my belief is we need to get the maximum we can for these students during these next, 11, 12 weeks.
Legislation don't give us any option anyway.
No, it doesn't appear legislation is going to give us any options.
When you say options, you mean 3 days, 4 days, 5 day concept?
Yeah,
They go back to 5 days.
legislators are pushing through a proposal that will require 5 days face-to-face. Yes, sir.
And I'm saying I agree with that, 5 days. I guess my thought is should it be March 15th, or should it be 3, March 15th, or 2, or 1? And should we evolve to it, or should we just start off with the max of 5?
Well, we're actually going to go 4 days the first week because we're going to be off that Friday. That was part of our logic on starting it that week, was that is a 4-day week. We can evaluate things because we'll have that Friday off, and if we need to make adjustments, we can.
Okay.
Okay, finally, I want to take just a minute. It was not on my list that I spoke to the chair about, but the Edwards Elementary incident today. I do want to give you a brief update on that. First, I want to say that it did not directly involve the school. This domestic incident occurred outside in the parking lot. It was between family members, and one family member did pull out a gun and shoot the other family member. It was not a life-threatening injury, and we were able to, the person fled the scene, and of course, within seconds, as was said of the call, we had law enforcement on campus. Not minutes, but literally seconds. When you go and you put the timeline together, and we had some good video footage that we were able to use for the law enforcement. It was amazing how quick we were able to secure the perimeter of the school. Ms. Suggs and her staff are to be commended in the way that they put that school on lockdown, and it was a textbook case of doing things. We were able to get things back settled enough that we had a on-time dismissal today, and got all the students loaded. We were a little bit late with buses because a number of the bus drivers in the Chesterfield area work at Edwards, and since we were under lockdown, they weren't able to leave to go get the buses yet. So we had to wait until we could loosen things up to send them. But our local law enforcement, both the town and the sheriff's department, were just a pleasure to work with. And I do not know if they have apprehended the suspect yet. We've been in the meeting, but the last I heard, they had not yet. But it was a very unfortunate situation. But I will say this: the staff at Edwards is to be commended to their response. It was amazing how well they did.
Your parents notified any kind of way?
Yes, sir. Parents were notified via Bright Arrow, and literally as quick as we could get a statement we could give, we were pushing it out. And we had it posted on the website and social media.
This didn't happen with parents getting ready to pick up their kids at school, right?
No, sir. This was at around 1:35. There was a parent coming to sign their one child out. Was why it ended up on campus. Anyone else? Okay, well, the only other thing I had was the Friday, March 19th is a flex day for employees. So all schools will be closed, but we need to make any adjustments on that day of 5 days. Our staff will be prepared to work as needed. So you got, yes, sir, that was all.
Okay, moving into the chairman's comments, one thing I'm gonna add to it, the first thing I'm gonna add, seeing that our schools are going back 5 days, some other entities that have boards that have actually opened up. I know Pages opened up, and they have limited access of people coming in. That's something I think the board needs to consider, moving somewhat forward, or coming up with some plan, moving forward to opening our meetings back up. And that's something I'm gonna put out to all the board members and superintendent, when you get superintendent, come up with some plan, or if any board member wants to have any input on that, would like to give me input on that, I'm allowed to do it at any time. But anyway,
You want us to call you later on?
that'd be fine, everybody just think about it, you know, I think that our kids are starting to go back, and I think we should follow suit with, we're gonna want to make them come back, I think we ought to set an example also. Totally up to whenever the board wants to do that, but that's something everybody can call in the superintendent, or myself, and we'll work on trying to start that back up. I know it's gonna have to be a limited amount of space, because that's what some of the other ones are doing.
My only comment is that we open it back up to the public, that we meet in a larger venue, a larger place, so we can have the space. I like the spacing that we got, and I don't want to sit up here on the stage, sitting too close. I got a few brains, and I want to stay around here.
I understand that, and I'm just bringing that up. Yes, sir.
And Mr. Chair, if I could also just comment, we can certainly continue the Zoom options too. I don't think that's a problem for us to do, but, you know, it probably would be nice if we, could have a limited number of guests come. You know, it would have been nice tonight if we'd been able to have the induction teachers here. This is their night, they normally come. They're watching via Zoom, but it would have been nice if they could have been here in person.
Anyone else? If not, moving on with the chairman's comments, March 29th, we'll have our next board meeting here at Continental Learning Center, unless we change that, tentatively, we'll have it here at 5:30, executive session, 5 executive session, our meeting will be at 5:30. And also, don't forget your March 30th deadline for your economic statement of interest to be submitted. And at this time, I need a motion to go into our second executive session.
Second.
Motion and second on the floor. All those in favor say motion, saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carried.